Quit pretending you belong here, loitering trash. This mall isn't your welfare hangout. The cop slammed Malik Carter face first onto the pavement, grinding his cheek against the cold grit as pressure pinned him down. Plastic cuffs snapped tight around his wrists while phones hovered nearby, recording like witnesses too afraid to speak. Always the same story, the officer sneered, breath heavy with contempt. Receipt, excuse. Attitude. Malik fixed his eyes on the concrete, tasting blood, forcing his body to stay still, counting breaths the way his father taught him. The officer leaned closer, smug, unchallenged, certain he was untouchable. He had no idea he was humiliating the one kid whose name could end his career before the sirens even faded. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. Through the glass doors of Briarwood Mall, Malik Carter stepped into the late afternoon sun, gift bag swinging gently from his fingers. The small purple package held a delicate charm bracelet, perfect for his sister's 13th birthday tomorrow. He'd saved up from 3 grocery store paychecks to afford it, and the receipt tucked safely in his pocket proved it was his. The concrete bench near the entrance felt warm as he settled down, pulling out his phone to text his mom. "At the main doors now," he typed to Denise. She'd promised to pick him up after her nursing shift, and Malik knew she'd be on time. She always was. "Thank you for shopping at Briarwood Mall," a recorded voice chirped overhead for the 100th time. "Please remember to keep all personal belongings." Malik tuned it out, watching shoppers stream past with their bags and children. A security camera mounted above the entrance whirred, its lens focusing and following his movements. He'd noticed that happening more lately, cameras finding him, tracking him, even when he was just standing still. Inside the climate-controlled mall, Rick Daly stood behind the customer service counter, his jaw tight as he stared through the glass doors. The mall manager's fingers drummed an irritated pattern on the counter while he watched Malik sitting peacefully on the bench. "Ruiz!" Daly barked, catching the young security guard's attention. "How long has he been out there?" Javier Ruiz shifted uncomfortably, clipboard clutched to his chest. "Maybe 5 minutes, sir. He just bought something. I saw him at the register. And now he's just loitering." Daly's voice dripped with disdain. "Call it in." "Sir, he has a receipt. He's probably waiting for a ride." "Did I ask for your opinion?" "Call it in." Daly's words came sharp and final. Javier's hand shook slightly as he unclipped the radio from his belt. He'd seen Malik in the mall before, never causing trouble, always polite. But Daly was watching, waiting, and Javier had rent due next week. "Base, this is mall security. We've got a suspicious individual refusing to leave the premises." Outside, Malik's stomach clenched as he spotted the patrol car crawling into the parking lot. He recognized the make and model instantly. His dad had taught him about police vehicles, had taught him so many things about staying safe. Keep your hands visible. Stay calm. Be polite, but firm about your rights. The cruiser's tires crunched over the asphalt as it pulled to a stop. 2 officers emerged, one tall and lean, the other stockier with a crew cut. Their badges caught the sunlight. Officer Trent Coyle and Officer Mason Briggs. "Stand up! Hands where we can see them," Coyle called out, his hand resting casually on his weapon. His tone made it clear this wasn't a friendly chat. Malik rose slowly, gift bag dangling from his left hand, phone held loosely in his right. "Good afternoon, officers," he said carefully, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Briggs circled to Malik's left, while Coyle approached head-on. "Getting a lot of complaints about loitering," Coyle said, though the steady stream of shoppers barely glanced their way. "This isn't a hangout spot." "I'm not loitering, sir," Malik replied, fighting to keep his voice even. "I just bought a gift for my sister. I have the receipt right here." He started to reach for his pocket. "Keep those hands where they are," Briggs snapped, taking a quick step forward. Malik froze, arms slightly raised now, the gift bag swaying in the breeze. "Sorry, officer. The receipt's in my right pocket. I'm just waiting for my mom to pick me up. She's on her way from work." Coyle's eyes narrowed. "Sure she is. Move along." The dismissal hit Malik like a slap. Here he was, doing absolutely nothing wrong, being treated like a criminal. "I'm waiting for my mother," he said, disbelief creeping into his voice. "What's the problem?" Inside, Javier watched through the glass doors, his clipboard forgotten in his hands. Beside him, Daly wore a satisfied smirk, like he was watching a plan unfold exactly as expected. Other shoppers slowed their pace, some pulling out phones, others hurrying past with averted eyes. The radio at Coyle's shoulder crackled with static, and Malik could feel the situation balancing on a knife's edge. His father's words echoed in his mind. "Stay calm, son. No matter what they say or do, stay calm." But his heart thundered against his ribs, and the gift bag suddenly felt heavy in his trembling hand. The security camera whirred above, its red light blinking steadily, recording everything. Malik wondered if it would matter, if anyone would ever see what was about to happen. He thought of the bracelet in the bag, of his sister's smile when she opened it, if he got to give it to her at all. "I asked you a question, officers," Malik said, his voice somehow remaining level despite the fear coursing through him. "What exactly is the problem here?" The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the concrete as shoppers continued to filter past, some now openly staring at the scene unfolding before them. The mall's cheerful recorded announcement played again, a surreal backdrop to the tension mounting with each passing second. Coyle took another step closer, invading Malik's space. "You want to get smart with me, boy?" "No, sir," Malik said, keeping his voice steady. "I just want to show you my receipt." He moved his hand slowly, telegraphing every motion as he reached for his pocket. Briggs circled behind him. "Yeah, sure. The receipt excuse. Never heard that one before." Malik carefully extracted the paper, holding it up so the mall's logo and timestamp were clearly visible. "I bought a charm bracelet for my sister's birthday. It's right here in the bag." "Could have stolen it," Coyle said, not even glancing at the receipt. "Could be anything in that bag." A small crowd had begun to gather. Some people pulled out phones, their cameras catching the afternoon sun as they recorded. Others hurried past, heads down, pretending not to see. "I didn't steal anything," Malik said, his heart hammering. "You can call the store. They'll remember me. I was just there 10 minutes ago." Briggs moved closer, his boots scraping on concrete. "Stop making excuses and move along." "My mom's almost here," Malik said. He tried to take a step back toward the mall doors, away from their suffocating presence. "I just need to wait." Coyle's hand shot out, grabbing a fistful of Malik's hoodie. "I said move." Pure instinct took over. Malik pulled back, trying to free himself from the choking grip. The gift bag swung wildly. "He's resisting!" Briggs shouted, though Malik had barely moved. Everything happened at once. Briggs slammed him against a concrete pillar, crushing the air from his lungs. His arm was wrenched up behind his back at a sickening angle. Cold metal bit into his wrists as handcuffs clicked tight. Too tight. "Stop resisting!" Coyle barked, though Malik wasn't fighting at all. A knee drove into his back, forcing him down. His cheek scraped against the rough concrete as Coyle pressed harder than necessary, grinding him into the ground. "Please," Malik gasped. "I can't breathe." His phone buzzed in his pocket, his mom calling, right on time to pick him up. The gift bag had fallen, the delicate bracelet box tumbling out onto the sidewalk. Rick Daly emerged from the mall doors, straightening his tie. "Officers, I want to formally complain about this individual. He's been loitering and making our customers uncomfortable all afternoon." "That's not true." Malik tried to turn his head to look at the mall manager. I just got here. The receipt shows. Coyle pressed his knee harder, cutting off Malik's words. Shut your mouth. More phones recorded now. More witnesses stood frozen, watching but not helping. The mall's cheerful announcement played again, surreal against the sound of Malik struggling to breathe. If you'd just listen, Malik wheezed, spots dancing in his vision. My father. Nobody cares who your daddy is, Briggs sneered, checking the cuffs one more time, making them even tighter. Malik's shoulders burned from the unnatural position. His phone kept buzzing. His mom would be worried now, maybe already pulling into the parking lot. He had to get word to someone. My dad is coming, he managed to say, each word a struggle against the weight on his back. He works for the FBI. Coyle barked out a laugh. Yeah, right. And I'm the tooth fairy. It's true, Malik insisted, even as the concrete scraped his face. He's federal law enforcement. Sure he is, Briggs chuckled, but there was a slight hesitation in his voice. Keep laughing, Malik said, finding strength despite the pain. He'll be here soon. Coyle pressed harder, but his laughter had lost its edge. Shut up about your made-up Fed father. Call it in, Malik challenged them. Check the name Carter. David Carter. The pressure on his back eased slightly. Above him, the officers exchanged glances. He's bluffing, Briggs said, but uncertainty had crept into his tone. The phone buzzed again in Malik's pocket. The crowd of onlookers had grown larger, their phones still recording everything. The charm bracelet box lay just out of reach, scraped but intact. Last chance, Malik said through gritted teeth. Check the name. Coyle's laughter died completely. In the sudden silence, only the mall's endless announcement loop and the sound of phones recording filled the air. The knee on Malik's back shifted, just slightly, as doubt began to seep in. A car door slammed somewhere in the parking lot. Footsteps approached. Quick, purposeful strides. The officer's confidence wavered, their grips loosening just enough for Malik to turn his head and see shadows stretching across the concrete. The mall's glass doors slid open again. More phones appeared in the crowd. The security camera whirred above them, its red light still blinking, capturing every moment of what was about to unfold. David Carter's black sedan cut through the parking lot with precise urgency, tires squealing slightly as he pulled up to the curb. He stepped out, his suit jacket perfect, his movements controlled, but his eyes blazed as they took in the scene. Malik was still pressed against the concrete, though the knee on his back had eased slightly. The gift bag lay scattered, its contents spilled. Phones pointed from every angle, recording everything. David's jaw tightened as he saw the scrapes on his son's face, the awkward angle of the cuffs, the growing bruises. His footsteps were measured, deliberate. He didn't run. He didn't shout. Instead, he went absolutely still, and that stillness carried more weight than any explosion of anger. Release him, David said, his voice soft but carrying. Now. Coyle's grip tightened reflexively. Sir, this is a police matter. You need to step back. David reached slowly into his jacket. The officers tensed, but he only withdrew his credentials, holding them up just long enough. The federal badge gleaming, his name and agency clear. Special Agent David Carter, FBI. Each word dropped like ice. That's my son you have pinned to the concrete. Release him. Immediately. The change was instant. Coyle's hands jerked back as if burned. Briggs took 2 quick steps away, suddenly finding the mall windows fascinating. The cuffs came off with fumbling speed. Sir, we didn't. Briggs started, then fell silent under David's steady gaze. Help him up, David ordered. Neither officer moved. I said, help my son up. Coyle reached down, but David cut him off. Don't touch him. You've done enough damage. He moved to Malik himself, supporting him as he stood. Breathe steady. Keep your head high. Malik swayed slightly but found his balance. Blood had dried on his cheek where the concrete scraped him. His wrists were marked angry red from the cuffs. Badge numbers, David said. Both of you. Now. Listen, Coyle said, attempting a smile that came out more like a grimace. This was clearly a misunderstanding. We were just responding to a complaint. Badge. Numbers. Briggs shuffled his feet. Our body cams had a technical issue earlier, system glitch. But we can explain. That wasn't what I asked for. David's voice never rose, but it cut through excuses like a blade. Badge numbers, names, and precinct. Or shall I call the field office directly? A commotion near the doors drew attention. Denise Carter pushed through the crowd, her scrubs still on from her hospital shift. She saw Malik's face and staggered. My baby, she gasped. What did they? Her hands reached for him, gentle on his bruised wrists. Then her eyes hardened as she turned to the officers. What did you do to my son? Ma'am, Coyle tried. There was a complaint about loitering. Loitering? Denise's voice rose. He was waiting for me. I told him to wait right here. The crowd had grown larger. Dozens of phones captured every moment. The mall manager, Daly, had retreated inside, but his face watched nervously through the glass doors. David placed a steady hand on Malik's shoulder, checking his breathing, his pupils, any sign of serious injury. We're going to document everything, he said quietly. Every mark, every scrape. Don't let them minimize this. A police SUV pulled up, lights off but urgent. Chief Ellen Whitaker stepped out, her uniform pressed, her smile professional but tight. She assessed the scene with quick glances. The crowd, the phones, the federal agent, the injured teenager. Agent Carter, she said smoothly. Let's handle this situation privately. My office is just… No, David cut her off. This started publicly. It ends publicly. I understand you're upset. Whitaker's smile stayed fixed. But surely we can discuss this like professionals, away from all these cameras. These officers assaulted my 17-year-old son while he waited for his mother. They ignored his explanation, escalated without cause, and then tried to cover it up with conveniently malfunctioning cameras. That's a very serious accusation, Whitaker said, which is exactly why we should discuss it properly, through appropriate channels. Badge numbers, David repeated. Names, precinct, now. The chief's smile thinned. Agent Carter, I must insist. Every second you stall, more people are uploading this footage. More witnesses are sharing what they saw. You want to handle this privately? You're several minutes too late. Denise had her phone out now, too, photographing Malik's injuries with careful precision. Her hands shook with rage, but her documentation was methodical. Each scrape, each bruise, each mark from the cuffs. Baby, look at the camera, she said softly. Turn your head so I can get the scratches. The officers shifted uncomfortably as more photos clicked. The crowd murmured, sharing videos, comparing angles. Someone in the back called out, I got the whole thing, sir, from when they first grabbed him. Chief Whitaker's professional mask cracked slightly. Officers, return to your patrol. We'll discuss this incident in detail back at the station. They're not going anywhere, David said. Not until I have every name, every number, and their sergeant's direct contact information. The mall's cheerful announcement loop played again, jarringly bright against the tense scene. Malik stood straighter, despite his injuries. The charm bracelet box lay forgotten on the ground, its corners dented, but its contents intact, like Malik himself, scraped but unbroken. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the mall security office, casting harsh shadows across faces already tight with tension. Malik sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair, holding an ice pack to his wrist, while Denise kept her hand protectively on his shoulder. The room felt too small for all the anger it contained. Chief Whitaker leaned against the desk, her posture carefully casual. "Agent Carter, I want to personally apologize for any misunderstanding today. These things sometimes get blown out of proportion, but I'm sure we can put it behind us." David stood with his hands in his pockets, deceptively relaxed. "A misunderstanding? My son has documented injuries from your officers. That's not a misunderstanding. That's assault. Now, let's not throw around accusations," Whitaker said, her smile never reaching her eyes. "Why don't we just forget the whole thing? No paperwork, no hassle." "I want written statements from both officers," David said. "I want the mall security footage, the dispatch logs, and the body cam recordings." Rick Daly cleared his throat, straightening his tie. "Several customers reported feeling threatened by your son's presence. As mall manager, I have to take these concerns seriously." "Threatened?" Denise's voice cracked with disbelief. "He was holding a gift bag and a receipt." "Ma'am, perception is reality in retail," Daly said. "When shoppers feel uncomfortable—" "You mean when they see a black teenager existing in public," Denise cut in. In the corner, Javier Ruiz stood with his arms crossed, looking like he might be sick. His eyes kept darting to Malik's injuries, then away, his face heavy with guilt. "I made the call I thought was appropriate," Daly insisted, but his voice wavered. Whitaker stepped forward, placing herself between David and the officers. "Agent Carter, I understand you're upset as a father, but making this into a federal case would be unwise. Small towns run on relationships. You don't want to make enemies here. Are you threatening a federal agent?" David's voice was quiet but sharp. "Of course not." Whitaker smiled. "I'm giving friendly advice, professional courtesy." Malik shifted in his chair and winced, his shoulder clearly paining him. Denise noticed immediately. "We need to get him to the hospital," she said. "His shoulder shouldn't be hurting like this." "I'm fine, Mom," Malik said, but his face tightened when he tried to sit straighter. "Those body cam recordings," David pressed. "I want them now." Whitaker's smile grew strained. "They'll need to be reviewed internally first. Standard procedure. The footage would only confirm our officers acted appropriately," Briggs added quickly. "Then you should have no problem releasing it," David said. They made their way out of the office, through the mall's service corridor. As they passed, Officer Coyle muttered just loud enough to hear, "Should be grateful we didn't charge him." David stopped mid-step. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What was that, officer?" he asked without turning around. "Nothing, sir," Coyle said, but his tone dripped with insolence. "That's what I thought." David's words carried quiet menace. They emerged into the parking lot, where the evening had turned the sky purple-gray. Security lights cast long shadows across the asphalt. Malik walked carefully, trying not to show pain, but Denise noticed every wince. "We're going to the emergency room," she said firmly. "No arguments." "Mom, really, I just want to go home," Malik protested weakly. "That shoulder needs X-rays," she insisted, "and we need everything documented." David watched as Whitaker and her officers headed to their vehicles, noting how they clustered together, speaking in low voices. Daly had already retreated back into his office, blinds drawn. They got into their car, Denise helping Malik settle into the back seat to keep pressure off his shoulder. As David started the engine, he noticed a patrol car pull out behind them, keeping a careful distance but definitely following. "Don't react," he said quietly. "But we've got company." Denise checked the side mirror. "They're not even trying to hide it." The cruiser stayed 3 car lengths back, matching their every turn. When David took a longer route toward the hospital, the patrol car adjusted smoothly, maintaining its distance. Malik watched through the rear window, his face tight. "They're letting us know they can find us whenever they want." "Let them follow," David said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Let them show exactly who they are. The patrol car's headlights gleamed in their mirrors all the way to the hospital, a constant reminder that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Are you scared? Malik asked softly from the back seat. No, baby, Denise answered, reaching back to squeeze his hand. We're angry. There's a difference. David checked the rearview mirror again, watching the cruiser's predatory glide behind them. Your mother's right. They want us to be scared. But that's not how this is going to go. The patrol car followed them through every intersection, past shopping centers and residential streets, its presence a silent threat, a warning about stepping out of line. But in the Carter's car, fear was hardening into something else, something that would prove far more dangerous to Whitaker and her officers than simple intimidation. The hot water stung Malik's scrapes as he showered, revealing angry purple bruises blooming across his shoulder and back. Each movement sent fresh waves of pain through his muscles. He stood under the spray, letting it wash away the day's humiliation, but the memory of concrete against his face wouldn't fade so easily. Malik? His mom's voice came through the bathroom door. You okay in there? Yeah, Mom. Almost done. He shut off the water, careful not to twist his injured shoulder. In the living room, David had his laptop open, methodically documenting everything while it was still fresh. Timestamps, badge numbers, witness descriptions, nothing would be left to memory. His phone sat on speaker mode as he navigated through automated menus. Internal Affairs, how may I direct your call? This is Special Agent David Carter, FBI. I need to file a formal complaint regarding Officers Trent Coyle and Mason Briggs. Denise laid out supplies on the kitchen counter. Antiseptic, gauze, medical tape. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. A nurse's hands, steady even when her heart was racing. When Malik emerged in fresh clothes, she gestured him to sit. Let me see those cuts, she said, tilting his face gently toward the light. The scrape along his cheekbone had already started scabbing. David's voice carried from the living room. Yes, I'll hold for a supervisor. Again. Denise dabbed antiseptic on Malik's face, her touch gentle, but her eyes blazing. They think we'll just let this go, she muttered, like all the others probably had to. Mom? It's okay, Malik started. No, baby, it's not okay. None of this is okay. Small footsteps padded down the hallway. Lily appeared in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She froze when she saw the bandages on her brother's face. Malik, her voice trembled. What happened? Come here, squirt. Malik opened his arms, hiding his wince as she ran to hug him. I'm fine. Just had a rough day. Did somebody hurt you? Lily's eyes went wide with child's outrage. Some people made bad choices, Denise explained carefully. But we're handling it. I'll fight them, Lily declared, making tiny fists. Nobody hurts my brother. Despite everything, Malik smiled. Thanks. Tough stuff. But Dad's taking care of it. David's phone rang, a different line. His FBI office number. He muted the complaints hotline. Carter. David. It was his supervisor, Sayike Marcia Keene. We need to talk about today's incident. I'm filing the complaints now. Those officers need... That's why I'm calling. Keene's voice was carefully neutral. You need to be very careful here. David's jaw tightened. Careful. My son was assaulted. And I understand that, as a father, you're angry. But you're also a federal agent. Getting personally involved in local police matters could be seen as problematic. Problematic. David's voice dropped dangerously low. You mean like officers profiling and attacking a teenager for standing still? David, please, think about your position, your career, conflicts of interest. My son is not a conflict of interest. Denise looked up sharply at his tone. Even Lily went quiet, sensing the tension. Another call beeped through. Malik's school number. David switched lines, his stomach already knotting. "Mr. Carter?" It was Vice Principal Harris. "We've had a concerning development. Deputy Klein informed me that Malik's name appeared in a gang affiliation database after today's incident at the mall." "What?" David's hand clenched on the phone. "That's impossible. The system flagged it automatically. Given the circumstances, we'll need to schedule a review meeting. My son has never been in any gang. He's an honor student. Nevertheless, protocol requires—" Malik's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, then went very still. "Dad," he said quietly, "you should see this." David came to look. On the screen was a photo taken earlier that day. Malik face down on the concrete, Coyle's knee in his back. Below it, a message from an unknown number. "Next time won't be so gentle." Denise saw it and inhaled sharply. Lily hugged her brother tighter. "I'll call you back," David told the vice principal, ending the call. He dialed Keene again immediately. "I need federal resources on this," he said when she answered. "They're threatening my son." "David," Keene sighed. "You know I can't authorize that. This isn't a federal matter. They're retaliating against a federal agent's family, which is exactly why you need to step back. Let local authorities handle it." "Local authorities are the ones doing it." "Then file your complaints through proper channels. But do not, I repeat, do not make this personal." The line went dead. David stared at the phone, then at the threatening message still glowing on Malik's screen. The room felt too small, too exposed. Somewhere out there, Coyle and Briggs were probably laughing, confident in their immunity. "What do we do?" Malik asked quietly. Denise finished taping the last bandage and stepped back, crossing her arms. "David?" He looked at his family. His son's battered face, his daughter's frightened eyes, his wife's contained fury. And something crystallized in his mind. "This wasn't a mistake," he said finally. "It's a system, and systems can be dismantled." "But your supervisor said—" Malik started. "My supervisor wants me to play it safe, to protect the institution." David's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "But they forgot something important." "What's that?" Denise asked. "I'm not just an FBI agent. I'm a father." He looked at the threatening message again. "And they just threatened my son." The kitchen felt too quiet the next morning. Malik pushed scrambled eggs around his plate, his bruised shoulder protesting each movement. Lily kept glancing at the bandage on his face while she ate her cereal. Denise checked her phone repeatedly, her coffee going cold. "I can drive myself," Malik said, breaking the silence. "It's not far." "No." David's tone left no room for argument. He hadn't touched his breakfast. "I'm taking you." "Dad, people will think—" "Let them think." David straightened his tie, FBI badge secure in his pocket. "Eat your breakfast. We leave in 10. The drive to school was tense. Every intersection felt like a potential ambush. Every parked police car made Malik's heart jump. David noticed his son's flinches, but kept his eyes on the road, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The school parking lot was filling up when they arrived. Students streamed toward the entrance, laughing and calling to each other. Normal morning chaos, but it felt different now. Exposed. Dangerous. "Text me if anything happens," David said. "Anything at all." Malik nodded and got out, squaring his shoulders against the pane and the stairs. He made it halfway to first period before Deputy Klein stepped into his path. "Mr. Carter!" Klein's voice boomed down the hallway. Students turned to watch. "Let's have a little chat." Malik's stomach dropped. "I have class." "This won't take long." Klein's smile was all teeth. He gestured to the wall. "Step over here." Other students slowed their pace, phones appearing in hands. Malik felt the heat of their attention, their whispers. He moved to the wall, keeping his face neutral like his father taught him. "Interesting development in your file," Klein said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Some concerning associations flagged in the system." "I don't have any associations," Malik said evenly. "No? What about your friends? Notice any particular colors they wear?" "My friends are in AP classes with me." "And after school? Any special territories you like to hang around?" Each question dripped with implication. Each word was chosen to paint a picture for the gathering audience. Malik's hands trembled with suppressed rage, but he kept them loose at his sides. "I work at the grocery store after school," he said. "You can check my time card." "Oh, we're checking everything now?" Klein leaned closer. "That little incident yesterday? That's just the beginning of your problems." The first bell rang. Students reluctantly dispersed, but the damage was done. The deputy's performance had served its purpose. The whispers would spread all day. Meanwhile, David strode into the school office, his badge visible but not prominently displayed. "I need to see my son's complete file," he told the secretary, "and documentation for this gang database flag." "One moment." She disappeared into the principal's office. Minutes ticked by. Principal Walsh emerged, all practiced concern. "Mr. Carter, these processes take time." "This process shouldn't exist at all," David cut in. "My son has no record, no associations, nothing that would trigger any legitimate flag. So either show me the evidence or admit this is harassment. We take these matters very seriously." "So do I." David's voice could have frozen fire. "The file. Now." "We'll need to review protocols first," Walsh hedged. "Perhaps later this week." Through the office window, David spotted a patrol car idling across the street. Engine running, waiting. He recognized Coyle behind the wheel. The morning dragged into afternoon. Malik moved between classes like a target, hyper-aware of every glance, every whisper. In the cafeteria, he sat alone, his usual friends suddenly uncertain around him. Walking to chemistry, a teacher stepped backward suddenly, driving an elbow into Malik's injured shoulder. Pain exploded through his arm. "Oh, sorry." The teacher's apology sounded rehearsed. Snickers rippled from nearby students. Malik bit back a groan and kept walking. "Don't react. Don't give them anything." The final bell couldn't come soon enough. Malik hurried toward the student parking lot where his dad waited. But halfway there, he saw Coyle's cruiser roll slowly past the sidewalk. The patrol car stopped, engine idling. Coyle turned his head, staring directly at Malik with predatory focus. Message received. "We're watching. Always watching." When Malik got home, David was already on his laptop, phone pressed to his ear. "What do you mean, missing?" he demanded. "I filed it myself last night. I have the confirmation email right here." Malik dropped his backpack, wincing at the movement. "No, I will not submit a new complaint," David continued, voice rising. "I want to know what happened to case number AT47921. Someone accessed that file and—" He stopped, listening. His jaw clenched. "Yes, I'll hold. Again." Denise came in from the kitchen, took one look at Malik's face, and pulled him into a gentle hug. "That bad?" He nodded against her shoulder, finally letting his guard down. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore. The whole school saw," he added quietly. "Deputy Klein made sure of that." David hung up the phone with more force than necessary. "They're saying there's no record of the complaint. Like it never existed." "How is that possible?" Denise asked. "Someone's covering tracks." David opened another browser window. "But they forgot something important." "What's that?" Malik asked. "I document everything." David pulled up his email, showing the complaint confirmation. "And I made copies." The kitchen light cast harsh shadows over the scattered papers covering the table. David and Denise sat surrounded by printed screenshots, photos of Malik's injuries, and timeline notes written in David's precise handwriting. The clock showed 7:30 p.m., but neither of them felt the lateness. "Internal affairs," David muttered, dialing the number. "Last try for today." Denise organized the photos chronologically, while David waited through 4 rings. Finally, a voice answered. "Lieutenant Phelps speaking. This is Special Agent David Carter. I'm following up on a complaint regarding Officers Coyle and Briggs from yesterday's incident at Briarwood Mall." "Ah, yes, Agent Carter." Phelps's tone dripped with false warmth. "I was expecting your call. Listen, I'm trying to do you a favor here." "A favor?" David's pen pressed hard against his notepad. "These situations, they can get blown out of proportion. Young people sometimes misunderstand simple instructions." "My son didn't misunderstand being slammed into concrete," David cut in. "I have photos of his injuries." "Claims of excessive force require substantial evidence," Phelps said smoothly. "And unfortunately, we're not seeing any." "What about the body cam footage?" "Technical malfunction. These things happen." "And the mall security cameras?" "Private property. Outside our jurisdiction." Phelps sighed like a disappointed teacher. "Agent Carter, you seem intelligent. Surely you understand how these things work." David's jaw tightened. "I understand perfectly. I'll be there in 20 minutes to file the paperwork in person. Our records department closes at—" David hung up. Denise touched his arm. "You're going down there?" "With Malik. They need to see we're not backing down." The police station lobby was nearly empty when they arrived. A bored-looking clerk barely glanced up from her computer. "Public records request form," David said, placing his ID on the counter. "Those need approval," she drawled. "Come back tomorrow." "I'll wait. Supervisor's gone home. Nothing I can do." She shrugged. "Tomorrow." David kept his voice level. "I'd like that noted in the log. Your name is?" She hesitated, then pushed a form toward him without answering. They headed for the exit, David's shoes clicking against the polished floor. In a narrow hallway, Officer Briggs appeared suddenly, shouldering hard into David. "Oops," Briggs smirked. "Tight squeeze." David kept walking, one hand on Malik's back. But Malik saw everything. The deliberate angle of Briggs's body, the satisfaction in his eyes. Malik's fists clenched until his knuckles went white. Outside, a pickup truck revved its engine in the parking lot. A man in a worn baseball cap leaned out the window as they passed. "Here come the outsiders," he called out, spitting a brown stream that landed near Denise's feet. "Always stirring up trouble where there ain't none." David guided his family to their car, memorizing the truck's plate number. No one spoke during the drive home. At 10 p.m., David pulled into Jerry's all-night diner on the edge of town. Through the grimy windows, he spotted Hank Merritt in a corner booth, exactly as described on the phone. Mid-60s, rumpled jacket, reading glasses hanging from a cord. "Agent Carter?" Hank didn't stand. "Sit. Coffee's terrible here, but it's private." David slid into the booth, placing his folder on the scratched table. "Thank you for meeting me. Read your son's story online. Different names, same pattern." Hank stirred his coffee endlessly. "You said Whitaker's involved?" "Police Chief Ellen Whitaker. She tried to bury it immediately." Hank's spoon stopped moving. "Ellen Whitaker," he repeated softly. His face had gone pale under the fluorescent lights. "Oh, you poor bastard. You know her?" "Know of her. Been following her career for years." Hank reached into his worn messenger bag. "Remember when she was just a captain? Back when the Thompson boy disappeared?" "I'm not familiar with the case." "Because there wasn't one. Not officially." Hank pulled out a thick manila folder, its edges soft with age. "Marcus Thompson, 16. Black honor student like your boy. Had a run-in with some officers behind the old movie theater." Next day, gone. Family moved away a week later. David leaned forward. What happened to him? Nobody knows, but his daddy worked sanitation for the city. Good job, benefits. Until he started asking questions. Hank slid the folder across the table. Week after they left, he was found in Atlanta. Suicide, they said. Case closed. David opened the folder. Old newspaper clippings, handwritten witness statements, photographs of a teenage boy's smiling face. And Whitaker? Got promoted 6 months later. Beginning of a pattern. Hank's voice dropped lower. Every few years, same story. Different names, different incidents, but always the same players in the background. Always the same cleanup crew making problems disappear. David flipped through more pages, more faces, more unresolved complaints. Names he recognized. Phelps, Coyle, Briggs, all connected, all protected. How many? David asked. That I know of? 7 families run out of town. 2 suspicious deaths. Dozens of buried complaints. Hank took off his glasses, rubbing tired eyes. And those are just the ones I could track. A waitress approached with fresh coffee. They waited until she was out of earshot. They've done this before, Hank said gravely, tapping the folder. And they'll do it again. Unless someone stops them. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Renee Price's law office, illuminating dust motes that danced above stacks of legal documents. David sat across from her mahogany desk, while Hank Merritt settled into a worn leather chair beside him. Coffee cups steamed, untouched. These photos of Malik's injuries, Renee said, spreading them across her desk. The pattern of bruising shows clear excessive force. She picked up one showing the scrapes on his face. Concrete burns, unnecessary takedown. Classic intimidation move, Hank added, pulling files from his messenger bag. Look at these. He laid out yellowed photographs next to Malik's. Jeremy Wilson, 2015. Marcus Thompson, 2012. Same marks, same locations. Renee studied the images, her expression hardening. And the same officers involved? Coyle and Briggs weren't there for all of them, Hank said. But Whitaker's fingerprints are everywhere. She was captain when Thompson disappeared. David leaned forward. How do they keep getting away with it? Renee stood, pacing behind her desk. Small towns have perfect conditions for this kind of abuse. They weaponize everything. Databases, probation violations, minor citations. One loitering charge becomes resisting arrest. Resisting becomes a probation violation. Violation means jail time. She stopped at the window. Before you know it, families are drowning in legal fees and court dates. Most can't fight back. They move away, or they go quiet. The mall manager daily, David said. He was too ready with his statement backing the officers. Coordination, Renee nodded. Private security works closely with local police. They share information, sometimes unofficially. Did you notice any cameras following Malik before the incident? He mentioned feeling watched, David recalled. Security cameras tracking him. They profile targets ahead of time, Hank confirmed. Set them up to fail. Across town, Malik sat at the kitchen table with Lily, trying to focus on her math homework. But every time a car passed outside, his shoulders tensed. 7 times 8 is 56, he said automatically. But his mind kept replaying the pressure of the knee on his back, the rough scratch of concrete. Malik? Lily's voice seemed far away. Are you okay? He forced a smile. Yeah, just thinking. A siren wailed in the distance, and he flinched, knocking his pencil to the floor. Back in Renee's office, she drafted a formal demand letter while David and Hank sorted through more evidence. We need to move fast, Renee said, typing rapidly. I'm preparing a complaint packet for state oversight. Multiple violations, excessive force, racial profiling, false reporting, Evidence tampering. What about federal involvement? David asked. Your supervisor, Keene? Try her again. We need that review. David stepped into the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. Keene answered on the second ring. David, you're pushing too hard, she said without preamble. The local PD is filing complaints about your interference. They assaulted my son, Marcia. I understand that. But if you go rogue on this, I can't protect you. They're already talking suspension. David's free hand clenched. So I'm supposed to back off while they terrorize my family? I'm saying be smart. Work within the system. The system is broken. Then your career might break with it. Through the office window, David saw Malik pacing in the parking lot, phone in hand. His son's shoulders were tight, his movements tense, a teenager who should be worrying about grades and games, not watching for police cars. Renee looked up as David returned. Well, Bureau's washing their hands of it, he said flatly. Keene threatens suspension if I push. Typical, Hank muttered. Institutions protecting institutions. Renee gathered the photos and documents into organized piles. Then we go public. Local media first, then state outlets. I've got contacts at the Tribune who've been wanting to expose small-town corruption. It'll get ugly, Hank warned. It's already ugly, David replied. At home, Malik needed air. The walls felt too close, the rooms too quiet. He stepped onto the front porch, breathing in the afternoon warmth. A movement caught his eye. Across the street, a patrol car sat idle beneath a maple tree. Through the windshield, he saw the distinct shape of a camera lens aimed directly at his house. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. Stay inside. Malik's jaw clenched. Even his own front yard wasn't safe anymore. The word FBI, his father's shield, his family's supposed protection, felt hollow now, just another institution turning its back when truth became inconvenient. He looked at the patrol car again, at the lens recording his every move. His hand trembled slightly, but he forced it still. They wanted him afraid. They wanted his family to run, like all the others. The front door opened behind him. Malik, his mother called softly. Come inside, baby. He stood a moment longer, memorizing the car's number, the exact position of the camera. Then he turned and walked back into the house, careful to move slowly, deliberately. Let them watch. Let them record. Every frame was evidence now. The fluorescent lights in Hank's garage cast harsh shadows across the corkboard that dominated one wall. Red string connected photos, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes. A web of corruption laid bare. Renee Price stood before it, arms crossed, while David Carter sat at a folding table covered in financial records. Hank Merritt shuffled through a stack of papers, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Look at these overtime reports, Hank said, spreading several sheets across the table. Every quarter, like clockwork. Huge spikes in high-activity policing hours. David leaned in, scanning the numbers. Coordinated with equipment grants? Exactly. Hank tapped a highlighted column. They get new tasers, new cars, new surveillance gear, all tied to showing proactive enforcement results. Renee moved closer, frowning. They're manufacturing statistics to justify the funding. More than that, Hank said. He pulled out another document. I traced the equipment supplier, subsidiary of Bradford Security Solutions. The private detention contractor? David asked. The same. Renee's eyes narrowed. They run 3 facilities in the state. David spread out more papers. And look who sits on their local advisory board. The Briarwood Public Safety Foundation. Whitaker's pet project, Hank confirmed. They donate to police programs, sponsor community events, fund her leadership conferences. It's a circle, Renee said quietly. Arrest quotas drive detention contracts. Contracts generate kickbacks through the foundation. Foundation money keeps everyone in line. David's phone vibrated. He checked it discreetly, then stepped outside to take the call. The evening air was cooling, crickets starting their nightly chorus. "Marcus," he said softly. "Thanks for calling back." "David." The DOJ contact's voice was equally low. "I looked at what you sent. If even half of this is accurate, it's documented, all of it." A pause. "I can open a preliminary inquiry, unofficial. But if we find enough, that's all I'm asking. Just look. Records request goes out in 48 hours. Keep it quiet." David ended the call and walked back inside. Renee and Hank looked up expectantly. "DOJ's interested," he said simply. Renee's shoulders relaxed slightly. Hank nodded with grim satisfaction. Across town, the Carter house filled with the smell of baked chicken and cornbread, Malik's favorite meal. He sat at the kitchen counter, watching his mother cook while Lily colored beside him. "Need help, Mom?" he asked. Denise smiled, really smiled, for the first time in days. "Just set the table, baby." Malik gathered plates and silverware, moving carefully. His bruises still ached, but something else had shifted. The constant knot of fear in his stomach had loosened, just a little. In the living room, Lily's partially wrapped birthday present sat on the coffee table. The mall gift bag was crumpled now, the tissue paper torn, but Malik had carefully smoothed out what he could. "Can I help wrap it again?" Lily asked, abandoning her coloring book. "Sure," Malik said. He found fresh paper in the closet, and together they measured and folded, creating neat corners. Lily's tongue stuck out in concentration as she placed each piece of tape. "Perfect," she declared when they finished. Malik smiled. A real smile, not the forced one he'd been wearing all week. "Almost as perfect as you, Squirt." They ate dinner together, and for a brief moment, the house felt normal again. David shared a meaningful look with Denise across the table. Hope, fragile but real, settled over them like a warm blanket. Later that evening, Renee's phone lit up with an email confirmation. She read it twice, then called David. "It's official," she said. "DOJ records request goes out Wednesday morning. Full audit of arrest records, funding reports, everything." They kept their celebration subdued. A quiet exchange of determined looks, a few careful nods. No champagne, no high fives. They'd seen too much to celebrate too soon. The night deepened. Malik helped Lily with her bedtime routine, then sat in his room reviewing homework. The street outside was quiet, except for occasional car sounds. His phone stayed silent. No threatening texts, no strange calls. David and Denise spoke in low voices in the kitchen, planning next steps, allowing themselves to imagine justice. The clock on the wall ticked steadily toward midnight. The doorbell shattered the peace. David motioned everyone to stay back. He approached the front door cautiously, hand near his hip where his off-duty weapon rested. Through the peephole, he saw only darkness. He opened the door slowly, scanning the porch and yard. No one was there. But on the welcome mat lay a manila envelope. David pulled on gloves before touching it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Malik's most recent school photo. Across his smiling face, someone had stamped a single word in thick black ink. Thug. The manila envelope trembled in David's gloved hands. He closed the door carefully, keeping his movements steady despite the rage building in his chest. Denise covered her mouth when she saw the defaced photo, while Malik stood frozen, staring at his own face marked with that ugly word. David pulled out his phone, dialing Renee's number. She answered on the second ring. "They left something," he said quietly, describing the envelope and photo. "Document everything." Renee's voice was firm but controlled. "Photograph the envelope, the photo, the stamp mark. Note the exact time of delivery. Check your security cameras if you have them. And David, stay calm. This is what they want, to provoke you into making a mistake." "I know." David's jaw tightened as he photographed the evidence. But they're escalating. Denise gathered Lily close, stroking her hair. The young girl's eyes were wide with fear she didn't fully understand. Malik paced the living room, hands clenched into fists. "I'm not scared of them," he said, but his voice shook slightly. "You shouldn't have to be," David replied, carefully placing the envelope in a plastic bag for evidence. The night stretched on. No one slept much. They jumped at every car sound, every creak of the house settling. Denise made coffee around 3 a.m., and they sat together in the kitchen, speaking in low voices about nothing important, trying to maintain normalcy. The first hint of dawn was just touching the horizon when they heard the sirens. Red and blue lights suddenly flooded through the windows, painting twisted shadows across the walls. Multiple engines roared outside. Car doors slammed. "What the hell?" David moved to the window. At least 4 patrol cars had surrounded their house, lights blazing. Officers emerged with hands on their weapons. A loud voice through a megaphone. "Malik, Carter, step out of the house immediately." "No," Denise whispered. "No, no, no." David threw open the front door, stepping onto the porch with his hands visible. "What is this about?" Chief Whitaker emerged from behind a patrol car, her smile sharp in the flashing lights. "We have reports that Malik violated Curfew Ordinance 23.7 approximately 1 hour ago. When approached by officers, he failed to comply with a lawful stop." "That's impossible," David's voice cut through the night. "He's been home all night. We've all been home. We have witness statements saying otherwise." Whitaker's voice dripped with false concern. "Now, where is he?" Neighbors were emerging from their houses now, drawn by the commotion. Some filmed with their phones, others whispered behind their hands. Malik appeared in the doorway, hands already raised. "I'm right here. I haven't gone anywhere." "Hands behind your back," an officer ordered, approaching with cuffs ready. "This is harassment," Denise shouted, trying to push forward. Another officer blocked her path. Lily's scream pierced the air as she watched them cuff her brother. "Stop it! He didn't do anything." "If you continue to interfere," Whitaker said smoothly to David, "I'll have to charge you with obstruction." David's training warred with his parental instincts as they led Malik to a patrol car. His son's face was set in a mask of dignity, but David could see the fear underneath. The drive to the station passed in a blur of fury and helplessness. By the time David arrived, they'd already processed Malik through booking. When he demanded to see his son, the desk sergeant took his time shuffling papers, making him wait. Inside the holding area, Malik stood against a wall, trying to make himself small. Other detainees lounged on benches or paced the confined space. One man, larger than the others, caught Malik's eye and moved closer. "Name's Rico," he said quietly. Too quietly. He leaned in close to Malik's ear. "They paid me." "Sorry, kid." Malik tried to step away, recognizing the threat too late. Rico's first punch drove into his ribs, stealing his breath. The second caught his jaw, snapping his head back against the wall. Training with his father kicked in. Malik dropped and rolled, coming up with his hands guarding his face. Rico pressed forward, relentless. His fists were heavy, practiced. He drove Malik back toward a metal bench. Someone shouted for the guards, but no one came. Survival instinct took over. Malik ducked under a wild swing and drove his elbow up into Rico's chin. When Rico grabbed him, Malik slammed his forehead into the bigger man's nose. They grappled, Malik desperately protecting his ribs, looking for an opening. Blood ran down Malik's face from a split eyebrow. His lip was already swelling. Rico's next punch sent him sprawling across the bench. Finally, guards appeared, taking their time to separate them. Malik curled around his bruised ribs, tasting copper in his mouth. Through blurry vision, He saw Rico being led away. No real punishment evident. When David finally got access to the holding area, his heart stopped at the sight of his son's injuries. The swelling was getting worse by the minute. A bruise darkened Malik's jaw, and blood had soaked into his shirt collar. "Jesus, Malik." David reached for him but was stopped by a guard. "No contact with the prisoner." David's phone buzzed. The caller ID showed his supervisor, Sayis Keen. His stomach dropped as he answered. "Agent Carter," she said formally. "This is notification of your temporary suspension. Effective immediately. Pending review of procedural concerns." The phone nearly slipped from David's numb fingers as he watched his son through the holding cell glass. Unable to reach him. Unable to protect him. While the machine they dared to challenge ground on without mercy. Morning sunlight crept through the Carter home's windows, but it brought no warmth. Malik sat motionless on the living room couch, wincing as Denise carefully replaced the bandage on his eyebrow. The bruises from Rico's attack had darkened overnight, painting ugly shadows across his face and ribs. David stood by the window, reading his suspension notice for the 10th time. The paper trembled slightly in his hands. "Pending review of procedural concerns," he muttered. "They didn't even try to make up a real reason." "This is my fault," Malik said, his voice hollow. "If I hadn't, don't." David turned sharply. "Don't you dare blame yourself for what they did." Denise finished with the bandage and squeezed Malik's shoulder gently. "We need to eat something, all of us." But her attempt at normalcy felt paper-thin. David's phone buzzed. Renee calling. He put it on speaker. "They're scared." Renee's voice was tight with controlled anger. "This escalation means we're close to something. They wouldn't risk such obvious retaliation unless exposure was imminent." "Close to what?" David demanded. "Every lead disappears. Every complaint vanishes. They nearly killed my son in a holding cell, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore." "That's exactly my point," Renee insisted. "They're getting sloppy. Desperate people make mistakes." Lily appeared in the doorway, clutching her backpack, her eyes fixed on Malik's bruises, and she quickly looked away. Denise guided her toward the kitchen, murmuring comfort. David's other phone line beeped. Hank this time. He switched calls. "My sources are going dark," Hank said, without preamble. "People who've talked to me for years suddenly won't return calls. Someone's putting pressure on the whole town." "Of course they are." David rubbed his eyes. "Can you blame them? Look what happened to Malik." Malik's phone chimed repeatedly. Message notifications flooding in. He scrolled through them, his expression hardening. "Some kids from school," he said quietly. "A few are saying they'll stand with me, but—" He turned the phone to show David. Messages filled the screen. "Should have stayed in your place. Cop fighter gonna learn? Next time finish the job?" David's hands clenched into fists. But before he could speak, Denise called from the kitchen. "Malik needs to leave for school." "I can stay home," Malik offered. "No," David and Denise said together. "We can't let them win," Denise added firmly. The drive to school was tense. David insisted on taking him, watching for patrol cars the whole way. In the parking lot, Deputy Klein stood waiting, his thumbs hooked in his belt. "Mr. Carter," Klein called out as they walked past. "A moment with your son?" David stepped between them. "No, just doing my job." Klein's smile was acid. "Making sure troubled youth get the attention they need." He turned to Malik. "Everyone ends up where they belong eventually. Remember that." Malik's jaw clenched. For a moment, David saw raw fury flash in his son's eyes, but Malik swallowed it down, kept walking. The day crawled by. David sat at home, staring at his FBI badge, feeling useless. Denise took Lily to a friend's house, not wanting her home alone. When evening came, Malik walked in looking exhausted, dropping onto the couch. "I've been thinking," he said after a long silence. Maybe I should leave. Just for a while. Stay with Aunt Sarah in Atlanta until this blows over. No, David's voice cracked. That's exactly what they want. To drive us out, to make us run. But they suspended you because of me, Malik burst out. They're destroying everything you worked for. If I leave, then they win, David cut him off. And they'll keep doing this to other families, other kids who don't have anyone to fight for them. Denise joined them, sitting between her husband and son. We stay together, she said firmly. That's not negotiable. They sat in heavy silence until a soft knock at the back door made them all jump. David moved cautiously to the kitchen, peering through the window. Javier Ruiz stood on their back step, looking over his shoulder nervously. His security guard uniform was wrinkled, like he'd been wearing it too long. His hands shook as he clutched something small. David opened the door slowly. Mr. Ruiz. I'm sorry, Javier blurted out. I'm so sorry about what happened at the mall. I should have said something sooner. But he swallowed hard. I saved something. That day, when they said there was no footage, he held out a flash drive with trembling fingers. The mall has backup cameras, he continued, words tumbling out. Ones they don't tell people about. I copied the files before they could delete them. It shows everything. How they targeted your son. How the officers escalated for no reason. And he glanced around again. It's not just that day. I started saving footage months ago. Other incidents. Same officers. Same patterns. David stared at the flash drive, hardly daring to breathe. Malik and Denise had come to stand behind him. Why now? David asked quietly. Javier's eyes were wet. Because I saw what they did to him at the station. Because I can't sleep anymore knowing I helped them. Because... He met Malik's gaze. Because it has to stop. The kitchen table became a war room as David pulled out chairs for everyone. Javier's hands still shook as he placed the flash drive in the center like a live grenade. Denise made coffee while Renee rushed over, arriving within 20 minutes of David's urgent call. Show us, David said quietly. Javier nodded and pulled out his laptop. I started saving everything 6 months ago, when I noticed the pattern. He plugged in the drive, fingers clumsy with nerves. Daly kept making us call the police on specific kids. Always black or Hispanic teenagers. Always for loitering or suspicious behavior. The first video played silently. A young black girl, maybe 15, standing quietly near the mall entrance. Security approaching. Police arriving too fast, too aggressive. They had response times under 2 minutes, Javier explained. Like they were waiting nearby. Ready. Malik leaned forward, watching intently. I remember her. That was last month. She was just waiting for her mom, too. More videos followed. More teenagers. More coincidental police presence. More unnecessary force. Javier had documented dates, times, badge numbers, patterns of behavior. Daly found out I was saving copies, Javier said, his voice tight. He called me into his office yesterday. Said if I wanted to keep my job, keep my work visa, I needed to be a team player. He swallowed hard. Then he mentioned knowing where I live, where my sister's kids go to school. Denise reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You're doing the right thing. Renee was already working, connecting an encrypted hard drive. We need multiple backups, stored in different locations. Her fingers flew across her keyboard. And we need to document chain of custody perfectly. No gaps they can exploit. David grabbed his notebook and pen. Mr. Ruiz, I need your full statement. Everything you saw, everything you heard, names, dates, threats, all of it. While David interviewed Javier, Malik couldn't stop watching the footage of his own arrest. The camera angle was clear, brutal. There was no mistaking the unnecessary force, the knee grinding into his back, the complete lack of resistance on his part. Shame and fury warred in his chest. Part of him wanted to look away, to pretend it hadn't happened, but a stronger part refused to break eye contact with the screen. This was real. They did this. And he survived. Denise noticed his tension and moved closer, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "You stood your ground with dignity," she whispered. "Don't let them make you ashamed of that." David's phone buzzed. Hank calling. "I've got a contact at the National Observer," Hank said without preamble. "They want this story, but they need more than excessive force footage. They need the money trail. Proof this isn't just a few bad officers, but a systemic operation." "The private detention contracts," David nodded. "The overtime spikes, the equipment grants, the public safety donations." "Exactly. We need financial records showing who profits from these arrests. Without that, they can claim it's just isolated incidents." David stared at his FBI badge on the table. He couldn't access those records while suspended, but he knew exactly where they'd be. "Give me an hour." He pulled out a fresh notebook and began mapping likely paper trails, drawing on years of federal investigation experience. Detention contracts would go through county procurement. Grant applications would need oversight signatures. Equipment purchases would have serial numbers. Renee looked over his shoulder. "We'd need someone on the inside of those systems, someone with high-level database access. And someone willing to risk everything," David added grimly. Javier finished his statement, signing each page with shaking hands. "What happens now?" he asked. "To me, I mean?" "We protect you," Renee said firmly. "I've got friends at the ACLU who handle whistleblower cases. We'll get you legal coverage, witness protection, if needed." David's phone buzzed again, an encrypted message from an unknown number. He opened it carefully. "I'm Tessa Nguyen, federal analyst. Hank Merritt said you need sealed contracting records." David showed the message to Renee, who nodded slowly. "Hank mentioned her. She's helped expose other corruption cases." Another message appeared. "I can access the database, but if we go public, there's no going back." The kitchen fell silent. They all understood what this meant. With video evidence and financial records together, they could expose everything. But the backlash would be severe. Lives would change forever. Malik stood up straight. "Do it," he said firmly. "They need to be stopped." David looked at his son, really looked at him. The bruises were still dark on his face, but his eyes were clear and determined. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. Denise took David's hand. "We're all in this together." David typed back, "We're ready." On the laptop screen, the footage of Malik's arrest played one more time. But now they watched it differently. Not as victims reliving trauma, but as witnesses gathering strength. Every frame was evidence. Every second brought justice closer. Renee finished creating the last backup and handed Javier a burner phone. "Use this to contact us. Don't go back to work tomorrow. Stay with friends if you can." Javier nodded, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Thank you. All of you." The footage continued to play silently as they gathered their evidence, made their plans, and prepared for what was coming. Outside, the night grew deeper, but inside the Carter kitchen, truth was finally seeing light. The morning crowd buzzed around David as he sat in the corner of Bean There Cafe, 40 minutes from home. He'd chosen the spot carefully, busy enough to make surveillance difficult, public enough to discourage confrontation. His coffee cooled untouched as he watched the door. Tessa Nguyen entered precisely on time, carrying a leather messenger bag and scanning the room with quick, practiced movements. She was younger than he expected, but her eyes held the wary intensity of someone who knew too much. "Agent Carter," she said quietly, sliding into the seat across from him. "Just David now. Suspended, remember?" She nodded, pulling out a laptop and several folders. "That's exactly why we're here." They thought suspending you would shut this down. Instead, it freed you to act. The cafe's noise provided cover as she opened the first folder. Look at these grant applications. Community Safety Initiative funds, millions of dollars tied directly to arrest metrics and detention referrals. David studied the highlighted sections. The language was carefully coded, but the meaning was clear. More arrests meant more money. More detentions meant bigger budgets. Cross-reference the approval signatures, Tessa continued, sliding over another document. Notice how the oversight board connects back to Whitaker's circle? The same names keep appearing: foundation directors, property developers, private security contractors. David recognized several names, including Rick Daley's business partners. They're all feeding from the same trough. Exactly. And this is where it gets interesting. She pulled up spreadsheets showing overtime payments and equipment purchases. See these spikes in high-activity policing hours? They align perfectly with detention center expansion proposals. More overtime means more arrests, means more cells needed. They're manufacturing demand, David said, his jaw tight, creating their own pipeline. Tessa nodded grimly. But here's what will break them. She revealed contracts showing kickback arrangements disguised as consulting fees. They got sloppy. Started believing they were untouchable. What made you decide to help? David asked. She was quiet for a moment. I process these numbers every day. Each one represents someone's child being fed into the machine. When I saw your son's name appear in the system, she shook her head. Sometimes you have to risk everything to stop evil things from looking normal. David gathered the documents carefully. You understand what happens next? Once this goes public? They'll come at all of us hard, she said, but truth has momentum. Once it starts moving, it's harder to bury. Back at the Carter home, Renee and Hank were already waiting. David spread out Tessa's evidence on the dining room table. This is it, Renee said, examining the contracts. With Javier's footage and these papers, we can show the whole machine, from street-level brutality to profit margins. Hank was already drafting a timeline. We release everything during next week's town hall. Maximum public impact. No closed-door meetings where they can minimize it. The timing's perfect, Renee added. Whitaker and Harlan will both be there, getting their community service awards. Their whole support system will be in one room. Malik entered from the kitchen, where he'd been listening. I want to speak, he said firmly. Not just have my video shown. I want to tell my own story. Denise followed him, face tight with worry. Baby, that's dangerous. Speaking publicly will make you a bigger target. I already am a target, Malik said. At least this way, I'm choosing how to stand up. My voice, my truth. David studied his son's face. The determination there. The refusal to be silenced. We do this as a family, he said finally. All of us together. Renee nodded. I'll coordinate with my media contacts. We'll have cameras rolling before they can shut it down. David sat at his desk, facing his laptop's camera. They needed his statement on record. Clear, factual, impossible to dismiss as emotional exaggeration. My name is Special Agent David Carter, he began. I'm recording this statement to document systematic civil rights violations and financial corruption within the Riverside Police Department. The following evidence shows a coordinated effort to target minority youth for arrest and detention, incentivized by private contracts and grant funding. His voice remained steady as he detailed names, dates, dollar amounts. No threats, no accusations, just irrefutable facts laid out in federal testimony style. As evening fell, patrol cars began their psychological warfare. Coyle and Briggs cruised past repeatedly, headlights sweeping across the Carter home's windows every 15 minutes. Malik stood at the living room window, watching them pass. Let them waste gas, he whispered. Let them try to scare us. I'm not hiding anymore. Denise joined him, putting an arm around his shoulders. Every sweep of headlights showed their silhouettes clearly. Mother and son, unafraid, unmoving. "They think fear is their weapon," Malik said, "but it's starting to look like desperation to me." Another pass, another sweep of light. But this time, something had changed. The watchers were being watched. The intimidators were revealing their own fear. And in the Carter home, truth was being assembled like armor, piece by piece, preparing for battle. The community center buzzed with artificial celebration. Red, white, and blue bunting draped the walls, and a banner stretched across the stage proclaimed, "Honoring Riverside's Finest." The room was packed shoulder to shoulder. Business owners, politicians, and carefully selected community representatives all arranged like props in a stage play. Chief Ellen Whitaker sat center stage, polished and poised in her dress uniform. Next to her, Sergeant Paul Harlan lounged in his chair with the casual arrogance of someone who believed he owned the room. They looked like royalty holding court, accepting praise as their natural due. David Carter pushed through the entrance doors, Malik close beside him. Denise followed with Renee Price, while Hank Merritt and Javier Ruiz brought up the rear. Their arrival sent ripples through the crowd, whispers and sideways glances spreading like waves. "Guess they didn't expect us to crash their party," Malik whispered, his voice steady despite the tension. Harlan's head snapped up at the sound of movement. His eyes found Malik and locked on with naked contempt, his jaw working like he was chewing something bitter. Malik met his gaze without flinching. "Remember," David murmured, "we're not here to fight. We're here to show truth." They found seats near the middle, close enough to be visible, far enough to see everything. The ceremony began with the usual pageantry: color guard, pledge of allegiance, opening remarks full of practiced gratitude. Mayor Thompson took the podium, his voice booming with artificial warmth. "Thanks to the dedicated work of Chief Whitaker and officers like Sergeant Harlan, we've made tremendous progress in cleaning up trouble spots and maintaining order in our community." Malik's shoulders tightened at the coded language. He knew exactly what kind of trouble they meant to clean up. Denise squeezed his hand hard. More speakers followed, each praising the department's proactive stance and commitment to community standards. Whitaker nodded graciously at each compliment while Harlan smirked, already imagining his moment in the spotlight. At precisely 8:15, Hank caught the eye of his contact in the tech booth and gave a slight nod. The large screens flanking the stage flickered once, twice, then burst into crystal-clear footage. The crowd's reaction was physical. Sharp intakes of breath, bodies jerking back, hands flying to mouths. There was Malik outside the mall, calm and controlled. There was the gift bag, the receipt, the careful attempts to explain. Then came the violence, sudden, brutal, and undeniable. The officers circling, the grab, the slam against concrete. Multiple angles showed what the malfunctioning body cameras had conveniently missed. The knee grinding into Malik's back, the unnecessary force, the casual cruelty. But it wasn't just Malik. More footage played. Other teens, other loitering arrests, other knees and cuffs and concrete meetings. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Whitaker rose halfway from her chair, face twisted with fury. "This is unauthorized." The footage switched to documents, spreadsheets, contracts, grant applications with certain names highlighted, certain numbers circled, payment records flowing from detention centers back to department-connected shell companies. "Kill the power!" Whitaker snapped at a nearby officer. "Now!" Renee Price stood, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Every piece of evidence you're seeing has already been transmitted to federal oversight committees and major media outlets. The full documentation will be public within the hour." The crowd's murmuring grew louder. People were pointing at the screen, at Whitaker, at each other. The carefully maintained illusion of righteous authority was cracking. Harlan surged to his feet, his face purple with rage. He stormed off the stage, shoving people aside as he bore down on David Carter's position. The crowd scattered from his path. David stood his ground, hands loose at his sides. He didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't take a fighting stance. He simply waited. Malik stepped forward, placing himself between Harlan and his father. His movement was calm, deliberate. Not a challenge, but a statement. You'll have to go through me first. You little. Harlan's fist was already swinging, telegraphing his rage. Malik ducked the wild punch smoothly, just as David had taught him in countless backyard sessions. In the same motion, David caught Harlan's extended arm and used the sergeant's own momentum to spin him off balance. Harlan roared, twisting free and throwing another punch. This one caught David's shoulder as he moved to protect Malik. The crowd scattered further, screaming now. Chairs toppled. The mayor called for order, his amplified voice only adding to the chaos. Harlan fought like a cornered animal, all technique abandoned in favor of raw fury. He swung at David, at Malik, at anyone trying to restrain him. His badge flew off in the struggle, skittering across the floor like a discarded piece of tin. "This is what they really are!" Renee shouted over the noise, pointing at the rampaging sergeant. "This is what happens when they can't hide anymore!" The screens above still played their damning evidence, an endless scroll of corruption laid bare, while below, its architect tried to beat his way out of consequences. Every wild swing, every snarl, every shove only confirmed what the footage revealed. A system built on violence, finally exposed to light. Javier Ruiz held his phone high, live-streaming everything. Hank Merritt was already calling his editor. Denise Carter stood tall, her phone also recording, making sure every second was preserved. And through it all, David and Malik moved together, defending each other while letting Harlan destroy himself with every punch thrown at truth. The town hall had dissolved into chaos, but the violence unfolding center stage held everyone transfixed. Harlan fought with the desperate fury of a man watching his kingdom crumble. His fists flew wild and heavy, seeking any target he could reach. David moved with controlled precision, blocking when possible, absorbing hits when necessary. He wasn't trying to win a fight, he was containing an explosion. His FBI training showed in every movement, measured, defensive, designed to minimize harm rather than inflict it. "Stay back!" David shouted to Malik. But in the chaos, Harlan's elbow caught Malik's injured shoulder. Malik stumbled backward into a row of chairs. "Don't you touch my son!" Denise's scream cut through the mayhem. Coyle pushed through the scattered crowd, moving to flank David. His hand rested on his weapon, face twisted with ugly anticipation. The sight of his backup seemed to fuel Harlan's rage. He launched forward, tackling David into the front row. "Keep filming!" Renee commanded the crowd, her voice carrying over the chaos. "Every second! Don't let them hide this!" Phones rose higher. Camera flashes strobed the scene. Javier's live stream captured everything, his hand steady despite his fear. "I watched this happen for years," Javier shouted, finding courage in crisis. "I'm done being scared. I'm done staying quiet." Harlan and David grappled on the floor, rolling between toppled chairs. David caught a punch to the ribs, but managed to lock Harlan's arm in a restraint hold. Harlan thrashed, spitting curses, his badge and authority forgotten in pure animal rage. "Federal agents! Everyone stand down!" The command boomed through the hall as dark-suited figures pushed through both sets of doors. They moved with practiced efficiency, flooding the space between the fighters. "FBI, on the ground now!" Coyle's hand jerked toward his weapon, but froze as an agent's gun trained on him instantly. "Touch that piece, and it's federal charges," the agent warned. Two more agents pulled Harlan off David, forcing him face down. The sergeant thrashed and cursed as cuffs clicked shut. David rolled to his feet, breathing hard but controlled. His suit was torn, blood trickled from his lip, but his eyes were clear and focused. On stage, Chief Whitaker found herself surrounded by agents with badges and warrants. Her careful composure cracked as they began reading charges: conspiracy, obstruction, civil rights violations, financial fraud. "You can't do this," she sputtered. "We have arrangements." "Those arrangements just expired, Chief." An agent cut her off, loud enough for the cameras to catch. Coyle tried to lunge for Malik one last time, maybe hoping to salvage something from the collapse, but an agent clotheslined him mid-step. "Bad choice," the agent said, driving him to his knees. Harlan twisted in his cuffs, still snarling threats, until he saw the wall of phones recording his meltdown. Reality seemed to hit him all at once. How he looked, what he'd done, all of it preserved forever. His face went slack with the realization that he'd helped destroy his own carefully maintained image. The next hours blurred into a cascade of consequences. Agents secured evidence from the police station and town hall. Whitaker was led out in cuffs as news vans arrived. Multiple officers tendered immediate resignations. The mayor issued a trembling statement about full cooperation with federal authorities. Malik stood with his family, watching it unfold. His shoulder ached where Harlan had struck him, but he felt something else, too. A weight lifting, a fear finally releasing its grip. "You okay?" David asked him softly, touching his shoulder. Malik nodded. "Yeah, we're okay." Denise wrapped her arms around both of them, and for a moment they just breathed together. Renee worked the crowd, gathering witness statements and contact information. Hank coordinated with arriving reporters, making sure the story couldn't be buried or spun. Javier gave his statement to federal agents, standing tall despite his hands shaking. The evidence they'd gathered rolled endlessly on the screens above. Footage, documents, patterns of abuse laid bare. No one could look away now. No one could pretend not to see. Weeks passed in a blur of headlines, investigations, and formal charges. The corrupt system that had seemed so untouchable crumbled piece by piece, exposed to the light of truth and consequences. Then came Malik's graduation day. He stood at the podium in his cap and gown, looking out over the crowd. David and Denise sat in the front row, pride shining in their eyes. The bruises had healed, but the victory remained, visible in every badge stripped away, every charge filed, every official forced to face justice. Malik gripped the podium, his voice steady and clear. He didn't speak of fear or anger. He spoke of standing up, of truth that couldn't be buried, of a future where justice wasn't just a word, but a reality that could be seen and touched and proven. The audience listened in complete silence. Some wore expressions of shame, remembering their own silence in the face of corruption. Others nodded, tears in their eyes, feeling the weight of necessary change. David watched his son speak, his chest tight with emotion. Beside him, Denise squeezed his hand. They had survived the storm together. More than survived, they had brought light to darkness, turned fear into strength, and shown that justice wasn't just an ideal, but a force that could reshape reality. The system that had seemed so untouchable lay in ruins, its defenders stripped of power and facing consequences at last. In its place stood something new: accountability, transparency, and the unshakable proof that truth, when finally exposed, could not be denied. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.